Hello and welcome. This is InMiMynd, and today we'll have a look on Vsauce's newest video, Do Chairs Exist? And maybe find a more plausible explanation for the whole problem. To start off, I have to say I like his videos. I watched a lot of them. But this one didn't feel quite right. I assume you all have watched it. But if you didn't, I encourage you to do so, since I won't show every single point he's making. So without further ado, let's jump right into the fun.
We give names to stuff, and if they catch on, we put them in dictionaries with the word noun next to them. But are all of these nouns an inventory of the universe, or an inventory of things we made?
Yes and yes. Those things exist in the universe, and we made them, in the sense of we gave them names. And maybe we actually made and named it.
Let me put it this way. Do islands exist? Well, it's in the dictionary, and a quick look around confirms that there are more than 0 islands. So, yes, islands exist. But what about in-cars? An in-car is a car that is in a garage.
You can give a name to anything. Some things already have specific names, and some can currently only be described. However, language was developed to communicate more efficiently. In the dawn of times, there neither were islands nor in-cars. But at some point, somebody came up with the term island to describe a patch of land surrounded by water. And people found it to be useful because they no longer had to say a patch of land surrounded by water. They instead now could just say island. So it stayed and still gets used today. On the contrary, your idea of frog.
What about trogs? A trog is an object whose parts are a tree and whatever dog is nearest.
It's not that useful of a word, is it? You can call it trog. That's fine. But society as a whole probably won't. And that is because it requires work to remember something. So oftentimes it's just not worth it. It's not a you and me do a little bit of philosophy question. It's about what the society values more. Learning a new word to describe something better and faster. Or not having to put in the effort to learn something new. Now we get into the juicy stuff.
If I take a knife and scrape off a tiny part of this chair, is it still a chair? I think most of us would say that yes, it is still a chair, and it would still be a chair even if I removed a tiny bit again and again.
Yes it is, and I'll explain why later.
So if this chair contains, say, 100 sextillion atoms, then there are actually at least 100 sextillion and 1 things here. All of the atoms and also the chair.
I'm sure you all heard of the saying, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. That's what's happening here. These 6 quintillion atoms form something new, a chair. It's not 6 quintillion and 1 things, it's 6tillion atoms manifesting a chair.
There must be a point at which a tiny change does make a difference. Now, different people might give different answers as to where that line is, but, we could just stipulate the boundaries. We could define chair in some extremely precise way. If we did that, if we defined the shape, function, and history that makes something a chair so precisely that even the smallest deviation could make or break its status as a chair, how could we know if we'd done it right? If we called up God and said, hey, dude, watch this. Okay, see this chair? Well, okay, now we're gonna remove a single atom from it. Ta-da, it's no longer a chair, is it? Would God be like, correct, You guys nailed it. That is exactly right. It was a chair before, and now, in my infinite wisdom, I can confirm that that single atom was exactly what made the difference. Unless there's some explanation for why a boundary should be drawn in a precise way instead of some other way, our stipulations are just arbitrary.
Yes, at some point, you may call it an old chair or a damaged chair. And if you do this over and over and over, it will be a chair no more. You may then say it was a chair. This perceived view on when you see it as a damaged or broken chair, or if you see it as a chair at all, has to do with dialectics. The view on what dialectic exactly is, has been altered many years over human history. However, they all have to do with seeing the world in and as a process. In this case, we're talking about a gradual process. The scrapping of the knife, suddenly turning the chair into something different. In dialectics, we call this a dialectic jump, or to be more precise, the transition from quantity to quality. And no, there is no exact line where it becomes a damaged chair or a broken chair. It's about perception. So yes, this is an arbitrary line, but not a function. A chair is something you can sit on, with no worries whatsoever. A damaged chair, not so much. And a broken one, you won't sit on at all. So while the line is arbitrary, the function is not. And you could even describe the chair's damagedness in more detail, like somewhat damaged or very damaged. But there still is no exact line. Again, it's transition from quantity to quality. And while you may perceive it as a damaged chair, I may perceive it as a broken one, for all my intents and purposes.
The problem of the many. If removing a tiny number of atoms from this chair leaves me with a chair, well, how many chairs are here? Like, okay, there's this one, but then there's also this one, which is really similar to the first, but it doesn't have these atoms on top of it. You know, I don't have to remove atoms for this to be a problem. All I have to do is try to define which atoms here are part of the chair and which aren't. At the atomic level, there isn't a definite boundary. Near the edge, it will be hard to tell whether a particular molecule is part of the moisture in the chair or part of the ambient humidity. Instead of there being a single chair here, it seems like really there are billions and billions of candidates for the chair. Which one is the chair? But now, suppose that instead of removing pieces, like in a Sorites sequence, or choosing pieces, like in the problem of the many, we instead discard pieces and replace them with new, similar pieces.
It's still the same chair, and the same problem, in fact. You're missing the point. The chair is not made out of this atom or that one. It's the sum of the atoms, manifesting, resembling, and functioning as a chair. It simply doesn't care if you remove and replace or just remove atoms. Again, there is no fine line here, and there doesn't have to be.
Ship of Theseus paradox. Suppose I buy a boat and name it Theseus. Over time, parts of the boat wear out, and I replace them with brand new parts. After, say, 10 years, well, I might realize that not a single part of my boat was part of the boat on the day I bought it. Do I now own a different boat? Have I owned two boats? But now suppose that someone has been following me around all these years and has been picking up each old part I throw out and storing them away in a warehouse. After I've replaced all the original parts, they take them and join them back the way they were 10 years ago. Which boat is Theseus? Both?
Let's assume this could actually work. As you said, the second boat has been built to resemble the original one. But in all those years, the original boat has undergone all those changes, has lived through many endeavors, and got repaired and renewed during the process. It developed. And you may still call it feces, or depending on how you perceive it, give it a new name. The second boat got rebuilt to resemble the original feces, with the original parts, so you may call it original feces, or rebuild of the original feces. It doesn't matter, because there are two different boats now. And that's the point here. Things are not static. They undergo changes over time. They have to be seen as in a process. Now, to be fair, Vsauce offers some theories which at least try to explain the whole to chair or not to chair thing from different viewpoints. But there is no truly dialectic one in it. So I felt like I had to make this video to offer one more theory which I think just is a little bit closer to our reality. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hello there, it's I, InMiMynd. If you don't want to miss out on future videos and my wonderful pronunciation, click the subscribe button and maybe that bell thing? Now I'll shut up for good.